now, our feature presentation.
Welcome, guys, to the main channel. This is live on the Power Cam because this is breaking news today. John Andretti, a big name in a big racing dynasty, has died after a long battle with cancer. He was 56 years old. We'll talk more about John Andretti in just a minute, but first I want to give you the background on the title of this live stream. You may have noticed the title was "Athletes Die, Press Tells Family, Everyone Loses." For the uninitiated, on Sunday, or at least that was the date that the story broke out. I'm not sure if it was late Saturday night or if it was on Sunday in the morning or something like that. Whatever the case, the story was reported on Sunday that Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gigi, and 7 others died in a helicopter crash. The Los Angeles Lakers have lost one of its greatest players ever. And I, as a Celtics fan, have lost one of the key reasons that I respect the Lakers so much. Because the Celtics-Lakers rivalry is about love, not hate. Anyway, the story was first reported by the news media outlet TMZ, which is a celebrity gossip column. I dare say a tabloid, because many of the stories that they break out are not untrue per se, but there's some degree of mistake of fact going on there. The general exception is that when they break a story of someone's death, chances are it's true. In this particular case, however, TMZ broke the story before the authorities had time to notify Vanessa and the families of the other victims. I say had time because excuse me. I say had time to notify because, according to a report I heard on NPR earlier in the week, the police chief in the area or some other appropriate authority who would have had to be the one to notify the families, by the time they actually notified the families, the story had already gone public. And apparently it is true that the families found out about the deaths because of the story as it appeared on TMZ or elsewhere in the press, because once it's out on one media outlet, all the others try to get the scoop. I was out with my friend, and there was a public television, and we saw it on CNN, and it was just dominating the TV. In fact, all of the TVs in that arcade that we were in, all of them had something to do with Kobe Bryant's death. It was on CNN. It was overshadowing the ongoing Celtics game. And there were at least 2 other sports channels talking about it. Of course, the one that we were actually hearing the audio from was CNN, because that was the closest television. Anyway, and on a side note, it was the first story I had seen on CNN that had absolutely nothing to do with the, as of the date of this live stream, ongoing impeachment trial of President-elect Donald John Trump. But that's another video for another day. Anyway, so I was shocked when I heard that it was Kobe Bryant because I knew the name, I knew the team, and as soon as I saw a picture, I knew immediately who it was because admittedly, I'm not a hardcore basketball fan like I am a racing fan. But, you know, given that I'm from Springfield, Massachusetts, naturally I'm a Boston fan. Excuse me, my battery is starting to run low, so I have to plug the computer in. This is embarrassing. There, that's better. So, I spoke about how I'm actually from Agawam, Massachusetts, which is in the metropolitan area of Springfield. It's a different town, the one where Six Flags is. Anyway, so that being said, I'm from the home territory of the sport of basketball, so naturally I am a Celtics fan. I'm not a hardcore fan of basketball in general, but if the Celtics are on, I'm going to watch, or at the very least, I'm going to listen on the radio, I'm on the road or something. So I knew that there was going to be a major period of widespread grief, not just amongst the families of the victims, but amongst us as a community, whether it's fans of Kobe Bryant personally, whether it's animation fans because of his Oscar-nominated animated short picture. I say the term Oscar-nominated because I'm not actually sure that it won. If you know for a fact whether it won or was just nominated, drop a comment below. I also recall geez, this is the problem with going live on the spot because you can't think straight because you didn't rehearse. Okay. So I knew that there was going to be widespread grief, not just amongst the victims' families, but of Kobe Bryant as an athlete or as an indie animator, or whether it's Lakers fans, by extension, Celtics fans, basketball fans in general. It's no surprise how much the social media has been buzzing about it, and I don't mean buzzing in a positive manner. Let me rephrase that. I don't mean buzzing in a very lighthearted fashion. And I also knew that this was going to have a big impact on the sports community in general. So that's where I stood when I first heard the story. Then the next day is when I heard on NPR that TMZ broke the story before the authorities actually had time to notify the family. I say had time to notify as opposed to simply notified, because according to NPR, there was not enough time between the time of the accident and the time the story broke for the authorities to notify the families. Now, I get that they want to be the first ones to report on the story. I get it. Because, I've been there too. And in fact, I'm on here tonight trying to hopefully be one of the first, if not the first, to touch base on John Andretti's death. As far as a YouTuber who covers NASCAR stuff. Now, on that note, I was going to do this live stream on Channel 3, but due to a technical restriction, I had to do it on the main channel. I will, however, be posting additional commentary on Channel 3 later over the weekend. I'll be sure to have it up before the Super Bowl so I don't interrupt your parties. Now, moving on from Kobe Bryant to John Andretti. For the uninitiated, you might recall the name Andretti, but the older viewers, the ones you probably recall, or scratch the older viewers, any viewers that are not hardcore racing fans, and I mean hardcore IMSA, hardcore IndyCar, hardcore NASCAR, hardcore every motorsport in the book. Because there's only if you're a hardcore Andretti family fan. Outside of those niche markets, everybody knows the Andretti name. They probably know Mario Andretti. He's the only driver to win the Indy 500, the Daytona 500, and races in Formula One. Actually, that's wrong. Juan Pablo Montoya is the only other driver who accomplished this feat. Well, the Andretti that I grew up with was John Andretti. I was born in 1995, and I wasn't really a hardcore NASCAR fan until I got into high school, and by that time, I think John Andretti was largely retired. However, I do remember when I was a kid, whenever I heard the name Andretti, it was never Mario Andretti, it was never Michael Andretti, it was always John Andretti. And in fact, on the pool table behind this camera, I actually have a 64 scale John Andretti car driving the Richard Petty 43. I mean, come on. When you have Petty and Andretti on the same car, how can you beat that? Now, I was not even aware that John Andretti had cancer. I might have been vaguely aware, but I didn't know that his cancer had been anywhere beyond stage 3. So when my fiance texted me an hour ago that John Andretti died, I was shocked. And I realized that, this is a scoop. I want to get this out there before, say, Iceberg or Darian the Black Flag Man or, say, S-Step. I wanted to get my thoughts out there before they did because I wanted to capitalize on the scoop. Whether or not they actually got it out there, I don't know. Now, when I say the term capitalize on the scoop, I don't mean capitalize financially. I mean, I wanted to offer my 2 bits before they could get contaminated by me seeing their opinions. One of them posted a video earlier today at about, I want to say 1 o'clock. The earliest version of the John Andretti story that I could find was timestamped to about 3 hours ago as of 7:45 this evening. Now, I remind you, I am not going to the level that TMZ did. In fact, how could I? Because I didn't know that John Andretti died. And if my girlfriend knew John Andretti died, it must be out in the news. However, as of this live stream, I am not hearing any reports that the press leaked the story before the family was notified. I'll grant you, given that the cause of death was cancer, it's safe to say that he was surrounded by family. I have not actually read the story, but I have confirmation that he has died today. And so I wanted to offer my 2 cents on his legacy. And so with that, I'm going to racingreference.com, and I want to read some of the uninitiated here. That is, those of you who are not motorsports fans. I want to read some of his stats. A second. John Andretti has the distinction of being the first driver in racing history to attempt what we now call the Memorial Day double duty. And that is when a driver competes in the Indianapolis 500 and the Coca-Cola 600, the World 600, for those of you older racing fans, on the same day in an attempt to complete 1,100 miles of it. Driving 1,100, now for you and me, the casual driver out on the road, driving 100 miles, 1,100 miles, that's grueling on its own. Not try to drive 1,100 miles in one day. Only 4 drivers have ever attempted this feat. John Andretti was the first one. And hang on a second. I'm not looking up who it was. I know who else it was. I just wanted to see how much of it he finished. Okay. Okay, so John Andretti was the first one to attempt the Memorial Day double. He finished 10th place at Indy, apparently on the lead lap, and then flew to Charlotte, arrived just in time to start the 600, starting from the back of the field because he missed the drivers' meeting. Okay, I can see that. And dropping out on the 220th lap because of an engine failure, finishing 36th. Later that same season, by the way, Andretti competed in the inaugural Brickyard 400, which was NASCAR's first race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Indy 500 drivers had also qualified for the event, and through the years, there were racers that throughout their careers raced in both events. But Andretti was the first driver ever to compete in both events in the same season. I mean, to be fair to Andretti, to be fair to his detractors, that was the first year that NASCAR actually raced at the Brickyard. It was also the first year, actually it was the second year, that it was theoretically possible to race at Indy and Charlotte on the same day. Robbie Gordon holds the record for most attempts at double duty. He has 5 attempts. Tony Stewart attempted the feat twice. First in 1999, which, by the way, was his rookie season in NASCAR. He was fresh out of IndyCar. I remind you that Stewart is the only driver to win a championship in both IndyCar and NASCAR. And in 2001, he stunned the racing world by finishing both races on the lead lap. He is the only driver to accomplish the feat. And then in 2013, Kurt Busch, not Kyle Busch, but Kurt Busch, the older brother, he competed in the double. And he finished 6th at Indy, but dropped out of the race with an engine failure, having completed 906 miles. Now this year, 2019, there's talk that everybody's buzzing about Kyle Busch doing it, but there's talk that both of the Busch brothers are going to try their hand at double duty. Whoever your favorite double duty driver is, there would not be any buzz about it today, or at the very least, not the same kind of buzz if John Andretti had never attempted the feat. If John Andretti had never attempted the feat, if you ask me, nobody would have. So that's the one thing I remember John Andretti for the most. Even though that happened the year before I was born, when I look at the NASCAR history books, it just makes me even more of a John Andretti fan. Other stats for John Andretti. In 5 years of IndyCar, he has... Okay. Prior to the... Let's see. What year are we doing? Okay. Okay. So his pre-Indy split stats are this. This is for the kart series. But for all intents and purposes, this is pre-split IndyCar. His stats are this. 70... Wait a second. Yeah. 73 starts, 1 win, 2 podiums, 7 laps led, an average start of 12.2, an average finish of 12.5. 0 DNQs. In NASCAR Cups, in the NASCAR Cup Series, his stats are this: 393 starts, 2 wins, 13 top 5s, 37 top 10s, 4 poles, 763 laps led. Okay, his average start of 23.8 and average finish of 25.2 are not that great, but he has 23 DNQs, which, mind you, at a time for a driver that had no provisionals, especially going into the all exempt format as time wore on, I'd say that's a pretty good number, considering that he didn't have that many starts to begin with after 2003. Now, whether or not you're a John Andretti fan, whether or not you're an Andretti fan at all, whether or not you're a racing fan, I ask you this question. How would you have reacted if, say, for instance, Beyond the Flag or Charlotte Observer or I'm trying to think of a newspaper from the Indianapolis market. If one of those had gotten the story before doctors had notified the Andretti family of John's passing, not that would have actually happened, because generally speaking, if somebody has cancer, they're surrounded by family at any given time. But let's say, for the sake of the argument, that he was alone. How would you, as a fan or otherwise, hell, even if you don't like auto racing, how would you feel if the press had leaked a story about someone's death before the family had been properly notified? Might I say you'd be pissed? Might I add, rightly so? With that being said, my heart goes out to the Andretti family. To Aldo, to Mario, to Michael, to Marco, to everybody else in the Andretti family. I also want to put my heart out to Vanessa Bryant and family, to the families of and friends of the other 7 victims in the helicopter accident. Please forgive me for this next comment, but I hope TMZ goes out of business for this. I'm trying to think of something that's professionally offensive, but I can't think of anything. I don't want to be a troll per se, but I really hope at least I hope TMZ's subscribership goes down for this, because they are gonna if that's how they're gonna react when someone dies, by leaking the story immediately, they're gonna be in some serious trouble. And I don't mean from lawsuits from the family. Not that there's anything I can do about it, because I'm just a burgeoning YouTuber myself. I don't want to turn this into a rant, so I won't. Instead, I'm going to offer some wise words by a very wise man who once told millions of us when we were very young, always look for the people who are helping. You will find great comfort in that. Those wise words were shared to him by his mother, and his name was Fred McFeely Rogers. And every time a major disaster goes out, or a major controversy comes up, or even something as divisive as this, as of now, ongoing impeachment fiasco, my first instinct is to always look for the people who are helping. And in the case of the impeachment, I don't mean helping the House Republicans or the Senate Democrats. I mean helping we, the people, stick together as a community. Because the more we stick together, the stronger we'll be. Here we are back to whimsy. So I have about 2 minutes left. If you have, I'm so sorry this is coming out so awkward, but it had to be done live today because of a lack of time to rehearse and to record and to edit. Sooner or later, I'm going to have to go back to doing my YouTube videos the old way, audio only, but I can only do it live off the power cam, so I apologize for this awkwardness that's going on. Later this week, I will drop a top 10 list on Channel 2, top 10 sports rivalries in America, and I'll drop another one, top 10 rejected sport team names. Now I'm going to let you know in advance, those 2 are uncensored. They are the way they originally aired on my college radio show, and that's why it's going to Channel 2, because it was from my college radio show and because it's funny. I assure you there's nothing about death in there, because death is not funny. And then later this week, I will be offering more thoughts on Channel 3 for racing. And by the way, Channel 3 was originally going to be covering motocross, 24 Hours of Daytona, and the NASCAR Truck Series. Well, the plan for that has changed in part because of this Kobe Bryant thing, and in part because I just can't keep up with Supercross, IMSA, and NASCAR, plus IndyCar when that season rolls around. So I'm going to stick to just Indy as far as that sound means I'm running out of time and I have 30 seconds to wrap it up. So Channel 3 is going to be just about IndyCar and NASCAR until further notice. And Channel 2 will remain about sketches and funny top 10 lists and original music videos. The songs for the music videos will remain on this channel. In fact, most of my material will remain on this channel. Thanks again for joining me live on the Power Cam. I'm Joshua Hodges.